The massive colony ship Pioneer floated through the darkness of space. For 300 years, it had been traveling to a distant star system. Most of the ship's crew were not humans but advanced beings called the Evolved. They looked almost human but had been genetically changed to better live in space. They were taller, paler, and their minds worked differently. The Evolved believed they were superior to their human creators. They saw humans as primitive beings who relied too much on emotions and wild guesses. The Evolved preferred careful calculations and logic. The ship's AI systems agreed with them. In a hidden section of the ship, thousands of humans slept in cryogenic pods. They were the original pioneers who had started this mission centuries ago. The Evolved kept them in deep sleep, thinking they would never need them. The humans were just a backup plan, Emergency Protocol Omega, only to be awakened if everything else failed. Captain Subin Choi, leader of the Evolved crew, stood on the bridge looking at the ship's main screen. A strange blue light swirled in the darkness ahead of them. "What is it?" she asked the ship's AI. "Unknown," replied the calm voice of the computer. "It appears to be a spatial anomaly not in our database." Officer Miho Beck, the science specialist, studied his instruments. "The energy readings are impossible. It's like space itself is folding." The ship shuddered as it drew closer to the strange phenomenon. Warning alarms began to sound throughout the vessel. "Adjust course to avoid it," Captain Choi ordered. "Navigation systems not responding," reported Navigator Jion Han. Her long fingers danced over the controls, but nothing changed. "The anomaly is creating some kind of gravitational pull." For 3 days, the Evolved crew tried everything to escape. They calculated new routes, attempted to boost the engines, and even considered using weapons to disrupt the anomaly. Nothing worked. The ship was being pulled closer, and their sensors showed that any ship entering the strange blue light would be torn apart. In the main control room, 20 of the highest-ranking Evolved gathered for an emergency meeting. "We have exhausted all logical solutions," Captain Choi admitted. Her perfect features showed no emotion, but her voice had a slight tremor. "The anomaly defies all known physics." "Perhaps we need unpredictability," suggested Officer Beck hesitantly. Everyone turned to look at him. The young officer's suggestion was almost offensive to their kind. "You can't mean," began Navigator Han. "Emergency Protocol Omega," Beck finished. "Wake the humans." Silence fell over the room. The Evolved had never faced a problem they couldn't solve. The idea of turning to their primitive ancestors was deeply troubling. The humans operated on instinct and improvisation, Beck continued. They made leaps of logic that weren't always based on complete data. "Perhaps that's what we need now." After much debate, Captain Choi finally gave the order. Deep in the ship, machines hummed to life. Medical systems began the careful process of reversing 3 centuries of sleep for one specific pod. Captain Jaiwo Park of the original human mission opened her eyes slowly. Her vision was blurry at first. A tall, pale figure stood over her. "Welcome back, Captain Park," said the ship's medical AI. "The year is 2457. You have been asleep for 312 years. Park's mind raced despite the grogginess. She had been briefed before going into cryosleep that she might be awakened in an emergency. "Why?" she managed to ask, her voice rough from centuries of disuse. An Evolved woman stepped forward. "I am Captain Choi. We face an anomaly that threatens the ship. Our methods have failed. We require human intuition." Park tried to sit up. Her muscles felt weak after their long sleep. "Show me," she said. In the control room, the human captain studied the swirling blue light on the screen. The Evolved watched her carefully, expecting little. Park looked at the data, asked questions that seemed random to the Evolved, and finally smiled. "It's like a whirlpool," she said. "You don't fight a whirlpool by pushing against it. You ride with it and then angle out at the right moment." The Evolved looked skeptical, but they had no better ideas. As more humans were awakened to help, Captain Park began organizing them. The Evolved watched in confusion as the humans worked in seemingly chaotic ways, making jokes even while facing danger. But behind their strange behaviors was a spark of something the Evolved had forgotten: the uniquely human ability to face the unknown with both fear and hope. The ship's large meeting room was full. On one side sat the Evolved crew with their tall, thin bodies and calm faces. On the other side were the newly awakened humans, looking smaller and more colorful by comparison. The tension in the room felt thick enough to touch. Captain Jaiwo Park stood at the front, still adjusting to being awake after centuries of sleep. Next to her, Captain Subin Choi of the Evolved looked uncomfortable having to share command. "We need to work together to survive this," Park said, looking at both groups. "The anomaly is growing stronger." An Evolved officer named Jinwoo stood up. "With all respect, humans lack the enhanced intelligence to understand this situation. Your species makes decisions based on feelings rather than facts." Several humans muttered angrily at this. Do-hyun Kim, the human ship engineer, crossed his arms. "And yet you woke us up because you couldn't solve the problem." The meeting quickly broke down into arguments. The Evolved criticized human inefficiency, while the humans called the Evolved rigid and uncreative. Captain Park finally banged her hand on the table. "Enough. While we fight, the ship gets closer to destruction. We have different strengths. Let's use them." Over the next few days, more humans were awakened from cryosleep. Captain Park selected people with diverse skills: engineers, artists, even a chef and a kindergarten teacher. The Evolved were confused by these choices. "What use is a child's teacher in a space emergency?" asked Navigator Ji-yeon Han. "Someone who keeps 25 children happily occupied all day knows how to solve problems with limited resources," Park replied with a smile. "Trust me." The anomaly grew stronger, causing systems throughout the ship to fail. In the engine room, a critical power junction overheated and shut down. The Evolved engineers tried to repair it using standard procedures, but the replacement parts kept burning out because of strange energy waves from the anomaly. Do-hyun Kim watched their repeated attempts fail. Then he asked to try something different. "This won't work," said the lead Evolved engineer. "Your solution lacks precision." Kim ignored him and gathered materials from around the ship: old copper wiring, cooling gel from the medical bay, and even metal from the kitchen. His makeshift repair looked messy compared to the Evolved's perfect work. But when they activated the system, Kim's patch held while absorbing the energy fluctuations. "How did you know this would work?" asked the Evolved engineer. Kim shrugged. "I didn't. But I fixed engines with whatever was available since I was a teenager. Sometimes you need to improvise." In the navigation center, similar scenes played out. The Evolved navigators had tried mathematical formulas to plot a course away from the anomaly, but the strange physics made their calculations useless. Human navigator Hyojin Yoon suggested a different approach. "Stop trying to escape it completely," she said. "Look for patterns in how it pulls us. Maybe we can use its own force against it, like a judo move." The Evolved looked confused by the comparison, but allowed her to try. Using both the advanced ship systems and her own intuition, Yoon found small moments when the pull weakened. It wasn't a complete solution, but it bought them precious time. Throughout the ship, humans brought fresh perspectives to problems. Some solutions were elegant, others messy but effective. What impressed the Evolved most was how quickly humans adapted when their first ideas failed. At a new crisis meeting, Captain Choi admitted something difficult for an Evolved. "We are beginning to see value in human approaches. You operate with incomplete information in ways we cannot." Captain Park nodded. "And we need your precision and knowledge. Neither group can save this ship alone." That night, in the ship's observation room, Do-hyun Kim sat looking at the swirling blue anomaly through the large window. Navigator Han joined him, sitting carefully at a distance. "May I ask you something?" she said. "How do humans make decisions when you can't calculate all variables?" Kim thought for a moment. "We gather what information we can, then we take a leap of faith." "Faith?" Han seemed puzzled. "Trust in something unproven?" Sometimes that's all we have, Kim replied. Fear keeps you careful, but hope makes you try anyway. Han considered this strange concept. For the first time, she looked at the human not as a primitive ancestor but as a different kind of intelligence, one that might have something valuable to teach her. As the ship trembled from another energy wave, humans and evolved throughout the vessel began working side by side, each bringing their unique strengths to the fight for survival. The blue anomaly grew larger on the ship's screens. Now it filled almost the entire view. Strange patterns of light flashed across its surface, and the ship shook constantly as it was pulled closer. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. 3 hours until we're pulled in completely, announced Officer Miho Beck, his voice unusually strained for an evolved. On the bridge, human and evolved crew worked frantically at their stations. Captain Park and Captain Choi stood side by side, watching the swirling blue mass ahead. Something strange is happening to time near the anomaly, said Dr. Hannah Lee, the human physicist. She had been studying the readings for days with little sleep. Look at these measurements. The screen showed impossible numbers. Time itself seemed to be stretching and compressing around the ship. This defies all laws of physics, said an evolved scientist. Then it happened. A wave of energy washed over the ship, and reality seemed to shift. In one part of the ship, crew members reported seeing the same room from different time periods overlapped. In another section, people witnessed events before they happened. The evolved began to panic in their own quiet way. Their enhanced minds, designed for logic and patterns, couldn't process the contradictions. 3 evolved officers stood frozen in place, caught in mental loops as they tried to make sense of the impossible. They're experiencing recursive logic failures, Captain Choi explained, looking worried. Our minds seek perfect solutions when none exist. Strangely, the humans adapted better. Their minds, used to contradictions and uncertainty, remained functional despite the chaos. We need to stabilize the ship, Captain Park said firmly. Dr. Lee, any ideas? Hannah Lee had been scribbling calculations on a tablet. She looked up, her eyes bright with an idea. The drive core, she said. We need to modify it to generate a temporal field that matches the anomaly's frequency. Like tuning a radio to eliminate static. Impossible, stated the ship's AI. Calculations show a 99.8% chance of catastrophic failure. Those calculations assume normal physics, Lee argued. But nothing is normal here. Captain Choi hesitated. The evolved rarely went against clear probability. But she had seen enough to trust human intuition. Do it, she ordered. They assembled a small team, 3 humans and 2 evolved who had shown more flexibility than their peers. Together they headed to the massive engine room at the ship's center. The situation grew worse by the minute. In some corridors, time ran backwards. In others, it moved so slowly that people appeared frozen. The ship's computer systems began to fail as they encountered paradoxes they couldn't process. In the engine room, Dr. Lee directed the team to reconfigure the drive core, a glowing cylinder of energy at the center of the ship. The work was dangerous. Energy sparked and arced unpredictably. The anomaly is creating time fractures throughout the ship, reported Officer Beck over the communication system. Reality is becoming unstable. An explosion rocked the engine room, knocking everyone down. One of the evolved technicians was badly hurt. The human engineer Do-Hyun Kim quickly took his place. We need to complete the modifications, Lee shouted over the noise of failing systems. 10 more minutes. But they didn't have 10 minutes. A massive temporal wave hit the ship, and strange things began to happen. In the control room, Captain Park saw copies of herself from different timelines. Some were making different decisions. Some showed futures where the ship was destroyed. The engine room team worked frantically as reality twisted around them. The evolved struggled to function amid the chaos, but the humans pushed forward, relying on gut feelings when logic failed. It's ready, Lee finally announced. Activating now. She pressed the final sequence, and the drive core pulsed with new energy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the core began to glow brighter, sending out waves of blue light that matched the anomaly's pattern. Throughout the ship, the fractures in time began to stabilize. The multiple realities collapsed back into one. But the energy drain was enormous, and the ship's systems began to fail one by one. Power levels critical, the AI announced. Core overload imminent. Dr. Lee stared at the controls in horror. The field is working, but it's draining too much power. We need more energy or we'll lose everything. What about the cryopods, suggested Kim. They have independent power systems. But that would mean, Lee started. Waking everyone, Kim finished. All 5,000 humans in cryosleep. Lee quickly ran the calculations. Yes, that could work. If we reroute the power from the cryobay to support the temporal field. She sent the plan to the bridge. There was a long pause before Captain Park's voice came through. Do it, she said. Wake them all. As the ship trembled between survival and destruction, thousands of cryopods throughout the vessel began the awakening process. The future of the mission had just changed forever. Chaos filled the ship as thousands of humans awakened from cryosleep. Most were confused and frightened, having been suddenly pulled from centuries of dreamless sleep into a crisis. The ship shook violently as the temporal field struggled to stabilize. Captain Park's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, all awakened personnel, this is not a drill. We need everyone with technical skills to report to their original assigned stations. All others, please remain calm and stay in your designated areas. The Evolved watched in amazement as the humans organized themselves despite the confusion. They formed teams quickly, helping each other and moving with urgency. It was messy and loud compared to the Evolved's usual precision, but remarkably effective. In the art and recreation section of the ship, a young human named Taeho Kong sat quietly amid the noise. Before the long sleep, he had been an artist and musician. While others rushed to technical stations, he stared at the nearest monitor showing the swirling blue anomaly. Something about its patterns caught his attention. There's rhythm to it, he whispered. Like music. No one paid attention to him at first. Taeho found a tablet and began recording the light patterns, converting them into sound frequencies. The result was a strange, complex melody that kept repeating with slight variations. Meanwhile, in the engine room, Dr. Lee and her team worked desperately to maintain the temporal field. The additional power from the cryobay had helped, but the system was still unstable. We're missing something, Dr. Lee said, frustrated. The field keeps slipping out of sync with the anomaly. On the bridge, Captains Park and Choi coordinated the ship-wide effort. The situation was growing dire. Systems failed and restarted randomly throughout the vessel. Captain, called a young Evolved officer. Someone is trying to reach you from Recreation Section D. We're a bit busy here, Park replied. He insists it's important. Something about patterns in the anomaly. Curious, Park authorized the communication. Taeho Kang's face appeared on screen. Captain, the anomaly has a rhythm, he said excitedly. It's not random. Look. He showed his work on the tablet. These patterns repeat every 42 seconds with variations. If we could match our field to this rhythm instead of fighting it. Captain Choi looked skeptical. This is an artist, not a scientist. Sometimes we need both, Park replied. She sent Kang's data to Dr. Lee in the engine room. Lee studied the patterns quickly. He's right. We've been trying to create a stable field, but the anomaly itself pulses. We need to pulse our field to match it. With this new insight, Lee's team reconfigured the temporal field generators. The ship's AI, which had been struggling with the illogical nature of the crisis, began studying how humans made intuitive leaps. It adjusted its processes, becoming less rigid. AI adaptive algorithms engaging, announced the computer voice, which suddenly sounded less mechanical. Incorporating human intuitive processing. Throughout the ship, humans and Evolved began working together more effectively. The humans provided creative ideas and quick adaptability, while the Evolved contributed precision and enhanced calculating abilities. Each group started to appreciate the other's strengths. In a critical moment, the ship's main power core threatened to overload. All systems predicted failure within minutes. The evolved engineers froze, unable to find a logical solution with their calculations showing 100% probability of failure. Captain Park didn't hesitate. Based on nothing but instinct and experience, she ordered a complete power shutdown followed by an emergency restart sequence that no manual recommended. "This defies all safety protocols," Captain Choi protested. "Sometimes you have to break the rules to make new ones," Park replied. The ship went dark for 30 terrifying seconds. When power returned, the systems recalibrated to the new conditions. Somehow, Park's risky maneuver had reset the overload. The temporal field finally synchronized with the anomaly's rhythm, creating a stable bubble around the ship. The violent shaking subsided. On the main viewer, the swirling blue mass began to look less threatening and more like a pathway. "We could try to navigate through it now," suggested Navigator Han, who had been working closely with her human counterpart. Set course, both captains ordered simultaneously, then looked at each other with newfound respect. As the ship carefully moved forward, the AI continued to evolve, incorporating both human intuition and evolved precision into its processes. In the observation lounge, Taeho Kong sat with a group of evolved scientists, teaching them to see patterns through an artist's eyes while they taught him the math behind his intuitive understanding. "Perhaps we are not so different," said one young evolved to Kong. "We simply took different evolutionary paths." "And now those paths meet again," Kong replied, watching as the ship began its careful journey through the heart of the anomaly, humans and evolved working side by side at every station. The Pioneer emerged from the blue anomaly into unfamiliar space. Stars shone in patterns no one recognized. The ship's systems slowly returned to normal as the crew gathered on the observation deck to see their new surroundings. "Where are we?" Captain Park asked, staring at the viewscreen. The ship's AI, its voice now warmer than before the anomaly, responded, "According to stellar mapping, we've traveled approximately 50 light-years beyond our original course. However, we've also experienced a time displacement. Only 2 years have passed outside the anomaly while we experienced several weeks inside it." Captain Choi stood beside Park, her usually perfect posture slightly relaxed. The ship survived. Against all calculated odds. For the first time since awakening, Captain Park smiled fully. Sometimes beating the odds is what humans do best. In the days that followed, both humans and evolved worked to repair the ship. The atmosphere had changed. Where before there had been division and doubt, now there was cooperation and even friendship. In the main dining hall, tables that once separated the two groups now seated them together. Do-hyun Kim sat with several evolved engineers, showing them how to play a simple card game. Their laughter, something rare among the evolved, filled the room. "I never understood the purpose of games," said one young evolved engineer named Jin-soo. "But I see now how they teach adaptability and quick thinking." Kim shuffled the cards with practiced ease. "And they're fun. Don't forget fun." "Fun," repeated Jin-soo, as if testing an unfamiliar word. "Yes, I believe I am experiencing that." Elsewhere on the ship, Dr. Hannah Lee worked with the ship's AI to study the data collected from their passage through the anomaly. The experience had changed the AI profoundly. It had evolved beyond its programming, developing a capacity for intuitive leaps that mirrored human thought while maintaining the precision of its original design. "Your processing patterns have changed," Lee noted as they reviewed the data. "Yes," agreed the AI. "I have incorporated elements of human decision-making. I find the combination effective." Perhaps this is how the first evolved were meant to function, before they separated themselves so completely from their human origins. In the ship's council room, the leadership of both humans and evolved gathered to discuss their future. The ship's long-range sensors had detected a promising star system nearby with several potentially habitable planets. "Our original destination is still reachable," Captain Choi reported. "But it would take another 70 years at our current speed. Or," added Captain Park, "we could investigate this new system. It shows signs of being even more suitable than our planned colony world." The evolved colony director, Myon, studied the data carefully. The original mission parameters did not account for this option. Maybe it's time for new parameters, suggested Captain Park. The humans are all awake now. We can't simply put 5,000 people back into cryosleep and continue as before. Mayang considered this. You propose we change our destination? Abandon the mission plan created by our founders? I propose we adapt, Park replied. Just as we all did to survive the anomaly. After much discussion, a decision was reached. The Pioneer would change course for the new star system, which sensors indicated had 2 planets capable of supporting life. The original mission had been transformed by circumstance and choice. 1 month later, the ship entered orbit around a beautiful blue-green world. Early surveys showed it was even more suitable for colonization than they had hoped. As preparations for landing began, Captain Park stood in the observation lounge looking down at their new home. Captain Choi joined her, standing close enough that their shoulders almost touched, physical proximity that would have been unthinkable to an evolved before their shared crisis. I've been studying human history, Choi said quietly. Your people have always faced the unknown this way, improvising, adapting, taking risks based on incomplete information. Park nodded. It's how we survived on Earth when we were still cave dwellers. It's how we made it to the stars. The evolved were designed to be perfect, Choi continued. We thought that meant eliminating uncertainty and emotion. We were wrong. Below them, the planet turned slowly, white clouds swirling over blue oceans and green continents. The first landing shuttles were being prepared, carrying both human and evolved colonists who would build the initial settlement together. What will you call this new world? Choi asked. Park thought for a moment, then smiled. Harmony, she said. A fitting name for a place where 2 paths become one again. As they watched, the first golden rays of the system's sun broke over the planet's horizon, bathing the observation lounge in warm light. The Pioneer had found not just a new world, but a new way forward, humans and their descendants united by their shared strengths and the understanding that true evolution meant growing together rather than apart.